Welcome back to another edition of the Awakening Women podcast. In this episode, we're talking about 5 things, if they're happening in your relationship, they cannot be fixed. Okay, these are, I would stand on any hill and say, if your partner or spouse exhibits these behaviors on a regular, recurring basis. I'm not talking about the odd time where they shut down and they go quiet. I'm not talking about the odd time where there's a misunderstanding and maybe you misheard them and they say you're misunderstanding me or you didn't hear me correctly, because maybe that could be true. I'm not talking about those odd times. So when I start talking about these things, some women will also say, well, I do this too. I go silent, or I do some of these things too. We have to remember that abuse happens on a continuum, on a continual basis. It's very predictable. It's very cyclical. There are patterns. And until you understand what the cycle is and what those patterns are, then you're going to just think that you're dealing with everyday run-of-the-mill relationship conflicts, right? And then you go talk to your girlfriends who've never experienced this, or a colleague or someone that has never experienced this, and it's like, oh, that's all men. My husband does that too. And oh, it's just, it's just men. But when you have someone that is exhibiting these 5 behaviors on a continual basis, some of these things only need to happen one time to be considered a no deal. It is not fixable. And then it is in your best interest to become strong enough to be able to walk away. And that's why I say, I'm not here to tell you when to leave your relationship. And even when I've worked with women, aside from times when there was physical abuse present, that is the time when ethically that needs to be said. But other than that, I'm not here to tell anyone you need to get out. What I want to say though, is if this is happening, you need to accept that it's not going to change. And then what are you going to do about it if that's the case? Number 1, gaslighting. So this is like being told you're crazy, that you're hearing things, that you didn't hear things that you heard. You didn't see things that that you saw. They didn't mean it that way. You took it wrong. Something's wrong with you. And that you are overreacting to blatant abuse, lies, disrespect, and absolute disregard for who you are. This will not change ever. This will continue to be an ongoing thing. It does not matter what you try to bring up. Gaslighting will be a very large part of your day-to-day interactions when you try to address something that they did. Nobody wants to be called out on something, but if you're in a relationship with a somewhat healthy, normal, mature guy, and you say, hey, what you said there, it brought this up for me, or I'm feeling this way about it. And then they will take ownership for that, or they will try to, validate, or be at least like, oh, I see where you're coming from. That isn't how I intended it. That's not what I meant. However, I'm sorry. And I can see how that it would have come across that way. And then they work to not do that thing again, whatever it is. Okay, that's the key right there. But when someone is gaslighting you, they're trying to mess with your mind to think that it didn't actually ever happen in the first place. Okay, so that is a very dangerous thing for us women, very dangerous to our health, to be living in a relationship where there is ongoing gaslighting, because gaslighting is mental and emotional abuse, and it will very certainly destroy your mental health along with it, because it is very insidious, and you have to have the right anchors and the right supports to be able to stay in your reality. Number 2, stonewalling, silent treatment. If your partner has a pattern of shutting down and going cold when you're trying to communicate, and then gives you the silent treatment because you brought up their behavior, or you said no, or you set a boundary, this is not a workable relationship. Now, I'm not talking about, like I said, times where you shut down and you go quiet and you don't want to talk and you're not responding to text. But this is more of a protective thing because of how you've been treated. I'm talking about this happens when you try to discuss the relationship issues. You are attempting to repair, fix, express something that's gone on in the relationship, and they respond to that by going silent. This also could be boundary setting, when you start to draw your boundaries and draw a line in the sand and own your high value needs and realize that you're worth more than what you're being treated like, then you will likely see this stonewalling behavior. Or when you try to hold them accountable, which you cannot. You did this, you said that, I have it word for word, I wrote it in my notes, I recorded it, whatever it may be. They're going to shut down. They're going to act disinterested. They're going to start scrolling on their phone, looking away, or they'll get up right in the middle of your talking and walk out of the room. And usually it will be something like, I can't do this with you. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not doing this. You always have a problem. And it shuts the conversation down. So the stonewalling term comes from, you feel like you're talking to a wall because there's no interaction. There's no two-way conversation. That is not workable. Someone that is doing that on a regular basis and will not learn the tools, will not learn how to work through that discomfort, to be there and be emotionally mature enough to work through things with you, that is not going to change. Number 3, plays the victim. Everything negative is never their fault. They're never accountable to their behavior, and they'll never be a safe and secure place for you because they're never willing to see that they have done something wrong. So whatever it may be that you bring up, it always ends up being about a poor me type of scenario. They're not there to learn and grow and do better. Number four is cheating. This is obvious. However, I have worked with many women over the years who stayed through blatant abuse that they were aware of. It has happened. It does happen. And some women, it's because they don't quite see how bad it is, or they aren't willing to see how bad it is. Some women are just wanting to turn a blind eye to it because they don't like what that means, if that's the case, if their partner is cheating. So if your partner has any history or pattern of infidelity, it's not going to magically get better. So don't kid yourself if suddenly they're like trying to be a changed man. They flip the script to act like they've seen the light. 99% of the time, they just get better at hiding it. They're not actually not doing it. Number 5 is addictions to alcohol, drugs, porn, gambling, literally anything. Addictions that destroy families, relationships, health. That's how we can identify an addiction, by the way, is how many areas of this person's life are being impacted by that addiction, right? I could say, I think I have a bit of an addiction to chocolate, but like the dark chocolate. Don't give me milk chocolate because it's one of those things that once it's triggered and it's there, I just keep eating it. So I can't have that in the house. But dark chocolate, a little bit of that every day. Is that harming anyone? No. Is it harming me? Probably not in the quantities that I have it, because if I have dark chocolate, I only have a little bit at a time. Now, if I was binging candy all day and I was overweight and had diabetes coming and health issues and all that, that's going to impact me. And that's also going to impact my daughters, whether it's through them seeing that happening with me or that I'm not going to be here for them for very long if I am not taking care of myself, okay? This is kind of a superficial example, but it still is an example. Is that something that you would break up with someone over? Maybe. If there's someone that was visibly like eating terrible food, they were obese, they were unhealthy, they weren't exercising, not looking after themselves, and that was their addiction, that could be a deal breaker, right? So just look at whatever it is and ask yourself, how many areas of life is this person being impacted? So in this case, your partner, by this behavior. So if it's gambling, how is this impacting one or more areas? So that's how we diagnose addictions in the counseling field, is how many areas are being impacted. And if you were told you had to stop now, could you? And most times people would not be able to. If it's smoking or things like that, like, no way, you're not taking my ciggies away from me. Do a filter check on that one. But I really believe that if someone is addicted to alcohol, they're an alcoholic, they drink in excess, they drink multiple times a week, they get drunk, They're watching porn as an addictive outlet. They're doing any type of drugs. They're gambling family money away. It's not going to get better by you nagging. And reversing addictions takes self-mastery of the one who's addicted. They will not stop their addictions for you, for any woman, for any person, even for their children. You need to expect more of the same and spend the rest of your life mothering and hovering over them to make sure they're behaving properly if you choose to stay with someone who is an addict. Now, with addiction, I have someone in my life that I'm very close to that has overcome a pretty serious addiction. So it's not that it's not possible, but it didn't come from anyone around them nagging and being worried, and even just things around them falling apart. Because when you're addicted, you don't see the cause and effect. That all of this is going wrong in my life because of my addiction. No, it's everyone else, right? And so that's what you will see. And often what you witness with someone who comes out of an addiction like that is they start to take that self-accountability because they have to do that work in order to break the addiction. Because the addiction is a way that they abandon self, avoid, numb, distract. They don't want to see all of that. They don't want to see where they're responsible for destroying their own lives or the things that they don't want to look at. And so you will see oftentimes people who overcome addictions, it's a rare thing. Honestly, it's rare that they do this on their own without threats, without a court order or something like that, right? People that actually get the memo and get it. They have that awakening and realize, oh my God, I'm going down a really bad path. They actually tend to become very much more evolved human beings because they have to do that work to stay on that path of sobriety or being away from their addictions. So this is my quick and dirty list. Now, there are other things, obviously, okay? Like if you've got a guy that's raging and yelling in the home, yelling at you, yelling at the kids, throwing things, creating a hostile environment, that's a hell no, right? There are just so many things women put up with that is just, it's a actual reason to walk away. When there is abuse, hostility, addiction, those are all like, here's your permission slip to walk away. And I know it's not that easy just to do that the moment you discover this or that you start to see that that's what's happening. It's not easy to just say, okay, well, I've got kids and all this history, to just realize that I need to walk away. And especially with us high achievers, we're the leader types. We don't give up very easily. When we have a goal, when we have something that we're trying to accomplish, we do not give up easily. Even if everyone around you is going, what are you doing? Just give up. Just do that. You don't do it. You keep going because you have a goal. And so if that's what you're experiencing, you need to recognize that you're misusing your energy. You're misusing your gifts by putting it toward trying to rehabilitate someone who has no interest in doing this work whatsoever. And you've seen that through their actions. So if you are experiencing these behaviors, then there's a couple of ways I can help you. Number one, if you have not taken my $22 Relationship Clarity Bootcamp, that's a place to start. That walks you through awakening, lifting the veil, seeing things for what they really are, telling yourself the truth, and seeing what traits are within you that are keeping you locked into this trauma bonding, as well as learning the 5 levels of awakening, discover where you're at, what work you need to do to ascend up to conviction, and then get the roadmap for what your path looks like from here. If you're not sure, you don't want to do this anymore, but you also don't know where to go from here, then I walk you through, okay, here are the steps. And then if you want the actual how-to, the process that I've walked women, my one-on-one clients in groups, and now in my self-study course, my program that women have been going through it since 2020, whether through one-on-one with me or in groups, it is now only available as a self-study curriculum. So you can apply it in your own home, at your own pace, private, and put it into work at home, put it into practice. Then that is the place I send you to. If you are at a place where you know that something needs to give, something needs to change, but you're like, I don't know what first step to take from here. I have no idea what step. I've tried everything. I've exhausted all options. What else is there to try? That is where End the Cycle comes in, and that is who I created this program for. Women who are ready to experience a breakthrough. You're ready to take self-accountability for yourself. You're ready for some tough truths. You're ready for some no bullshit direction from me because you want to change and you want to move forward. Then that is where you need to be. All right, so thanks for tuning into this episode of the podcast. I will chat with you in the next one. Bye for now.